welcome back to the podcast. I have no idea which episode this is, but I do know that it is sponsored by MPB. MPB is the online platform which allows you to almost trade cameras. You can sell them, you can buy them, you can do whatever you wish. And we're going to show you some great setups later in this episode because we will be covering the perfect first professional camera that you can buy on various budgets for various different types of photography. Software that pros use, because this caused a lot of upset last time, and I think we need to address it a little bit better as to why we're just not using the Adobe stuff that we don't use. Why I don't shoot nude photography, or at least anymore. Sensor size, why it matters and when it does and doesn't matter. We have an interview with Alexis Ko, which is very interesting because she's a photographer who made it very quickly, and there's some key learning points we can take from there. I'm going to do a little bit after that as to why it's so hard to make it in photography today with the amount of misinformation, and that's going to kind of wrap up this episode, I suppose. So I'm joined once again by Rob.
Hello.
And Rob, what have you been up to? It's only a week ago, wasn't it, we did one of these?
It was only a week ago, although in the great timeline of YouTube, that may be more than a week.
No, I think this is literally going to be a week ago.
Oh,
yeah, we're on it.
I've been extremely busy. I've had a run of like 4 different highlight reels for various bands. We've had function bands, did some work with an operatic singer called Jade, who was absolutely incredible.
Amazing.
It's like, literally, it was like being in your own Bond film, shooting that. My God, what a voice. And then I did a bit of Madonna as well this week, so that was fun. So a smorgasbord of
You have been a busy boy then.
Reels.
You have been a busy boy. And you busy week next week?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I'm mostly in the edit board, in actual fairness. I've been working on a project with Eve Harding called Drown the Silence, and the deadline is looming, so I've got to get my backside in gear and get that done. So there are no excuses because I've been locked in cages with 18 stone men that scare me less than that woman. So.
Well, yeah, quite. There's nothing more scary, is there? That's good, and I think I've got some more work coming up for you as well. We're shooting next week. We've got Daisy down from Toast Represents, a good food stylist. I've got Paul in the studio, which is always good. I think Karen's coming down from my side.
Nice.
Maybe Pete as well, actually. Maybe we'll get Pete out of the M25.
That's a rare trip for him, isn't it?
I know. I think he's in Prague at the moment on a job, which I didn't win. But one of our other photographers did, so win-win, I guess. Not really, is it? But yeah, Andre Ainsworth got it. He's a good photographer, brilliant drinks guy. Really nice person as well, so that's always good. So he's off on a big job. I think it's Prague. I might be making this up completely. Maybe he's like in Staines. I don't know. It sounded exotic though.
Well, it's difficult to get him above the commuter belt. So
well, quite. So yeah, maybe he'll be up next week when we're shooting. I think we're shooting Thursday. I know I've got Monday's a big pre-prod day, so I've got to get everything sorted on Monday. But yeah, so we've got that. We've got stills and video. It very much looks like the images that we did for Kenview, but it's drinks and there's video. I've got questions for you later, but we'll put all that on Studio Access actually.
Yeah.
The how to shoot it ready for post. We'll do that as a video later today, because I've got to have that conversation anyway. But yeah, so what I want to do now is dive into our sponsor MPB, and what I've done is I've pulled together some key things. But first of all, I want to show you, and there's a reason for this. I want to show you Alexis's website. If her name's Alexis's, if it's hers? Alexis?
I believe it's Alexis, but yeah.
It's
a nightmare for punctuation.
Yes,
I should have. Would know the answer to that.
I should have asked that beforehand. No. So Alexis is a great commercial photographer. Did the big 7-Up campaign last year. She has an agent. She's moved where she is in her career. It took me 15 years to get to, and she did it in 2. But the reason I want to show you some of this work first is because one of these camera setups I'm going to show you afterwards is hers, and I want you to see if you can work out which one it is. We do go through all of her gear in the interview later on in this episode. But I mean, look at this site. It's beautiful, isn't it? It's very nice. Where's the one I really like? This one with like flowers. I don't know. There it is. Look at this.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. It's like flowers on a mirror.
I mean, I can sympathise with a retoucher that had to do that shit.
Yeah. Well, she's a retoucher as well. I think she does her own retouching. But this is her work, and I think she's only owned 2 cameras throughout her career, but one of these setups is her current one that she shoots all her work on. So what I've done, these tabs are hopefully in price order. And we've gone from various price points and what you might be able to get. Excuse me. So, starting off here, this camera setup here is, I want to be a professional photographer. I'm shooting various different things. I'm feeling a bit skint. But this is good enough to shoot everything nowadays up to probably what... You could shoot a national campaign on this, but if it was a big... I say a national campaign, you could shoot a national brands campaign on this. You couldn't shoot a national Coca-Cola campaign on this. They'd be expecting more. But you could shoot the test shoots on it to get you that job. And this is coming in at £658. And it is 5D Mark II, surprise, surprise, and a 24-105 f4 lens, which is actually what we use for our portrait work, but we use the cheaper Sigma version.
Again, it's the world's dullest lens.
So dull.
In that it has literally like no excitement to it. But I've always maintained, if you're out and about and you can only take one lens with you, that is the one you will take.
And I'd probably add a speed light to this as well for what, 50 quid?
Yeah.
See what, £700 all in?
And, you know, the £2 umbrella that we were using last week.
Yeah, £2 umbrella. Yeah, so that video did well. That was a bit of a side quest here, but it was the worst performing video ever, and I changed the title, and now it's the best performing video. So all those people go, oh, it's clickbait. It's like,
unfortunately, there's a reason for that.
Got to bait the click, which is different to click. We'll get into that later. Remind me of that. See if you can remember for later in the video. There is a reason for that. Anyway, next camera up. 5DS and the classic nifty 50. I put the Nikon one in here because they didn't have a Canon one at the time. This is good enough to shoot anything, including international worldwide campaigns. £1,100.
I mean, when you just look at the value proposition of that both setups, I mean, I'd say, I don't think I'm being unkind in saying this, you know, the 5D Mark II you built your career on.
Oh, yeah,
that was the foundation that you built your entire career on, was that camera.
Yeah, I won my first worldwide campaigns off a portfolio shot on a 5D Mark II. However, I did shoot those worldwide campaigns on a 5DS.
Yes.
No, I didn't. I shot my first worldwide campaign on a 5D Mark II.
5D Mark II?
I didn't know. No, I couldn't rent because the rental house wanted a deposit from me for the value of the camera and I didn't have enough money. Nowadays, luckily, I know the rental houses really well and they just let me off because then I'm not going to rob.
I mean, I remember when you did the big upgrade and you weren't sure which one to get, the DS or the DSR.
Yes.
So you bought one of each just in case to make sure you didn't buy the wrong one.
Yeah, it turns out you can get the DSR and it's fine, but the DSR is a bit more expensive. It's slightly sharper. I mean, if you're only going to have one camera, get the DS, because if you do fall into them, which I've never had an issue with. Yeah. Apart from with this camera, this 6K, if I wear anything patterned, it's a nightmare. Luckily, I don't really own patterned clothes, but there we go. Right, next up. This is the previous one, this is like commercial photography. This is I've got a bit more money to spend and I'm going to be shooting a variety of things. Some of it in challenging lighting, some of it moving subjects. The 5D Mark III, absolute beast of a camera.
Oh, no, I think the best evolution of the 5D was Mark III, I think.
I think so. I think it's like the sweet spot, and £489.
I mean, why would you buy a new Canon camera?
I know.
When you could buy a 5D Mark III, absolute god tier camera, for £489. I don't think, if you look at the cheapest EOS 1000, 1100D, whatever the cheapest one is today, it's going to be more than that.
This is why I don't understand why people buy brand new cameras unless it's the best one. I understand if you want to buy the latest and greatest, like the flagship, the 1 series or the 5. We're doing Canon here because I know Canon's ecosystem. Every brand has an equivalent to this. They'll also be absolutely fine. You get the Sony equivalent, you get the Nikon equivalent, which is like a 700D or something like that, I think. 750D, I can't remember. But
yes.
Yes. Anyway, they're all just as good. There's nothing in between camera brands. They're much of a muchness. But this one here, and for £500, if you go and buy a crop sensor camera for more than £500 brand new, you've made a mistake.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, this is built like an absolute tank.
This is what all the war photographers used.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
it could take a direct hit and still get the shot.
Yeah. Many a face have been protected by this. And then I've gone for the 24-70 2.8 for the Mark II.
It's got less range, but that extra stopper light.
It's got that extra stopper light, and it is significantly optically better.
Yes, the 24
so you got the extra stop of light, you got better low light handling, and it's almost as sharp as a prime. It's not as sharp, but it's almost as sharp. So coming into the next one, here we go. This is I'm going to be a sports photographer, event photographer, wedding photographer.
The bad boy, the 1DX Mark II.
1DX Mark II. It's only just over £1,000.
I've always wanted one of those, but for no practical purpose. I do not need one for anything.
I know. I'm selling my 1D camera.
I've always wanted it.
You remember when I bought the 1D? Because it was my dream camera.
There's the 1DS.
Yeah. I've not used it. So it's going on eBay. That was a stupid purchase. That was just I want to have one. I got it. I looked at it. I went, this is cool, and didn't use it. But we've gone for the 70 to 200 Mark 1 because there's not a major difference between the Mark 1 and the Mark 2. They're both banging lenses to save the money.
Mark 2 is slightly better.
Yeah, I couldn't see it though. I could see the difference between the 2470 Mark 1 and Mark 2. That was different. And then the 1DX Mark 2. This only got 20,000 shutter actuations on this. It's like brand new. It's box fresh.
And that thing will do 1 million. Easy.
Yeah, easy. These are great cameras. So
in one weekend, if you're spraying and praying at a festival.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, if you're doing events, if you're doing sports, if you're doing music, 2,000. I mean, it's a lot of money, 2,300. Let's not be.
But it's not. I mean, if you look at what the price today is of the, a 5 Series Canon, you're into
insane.
$4,000, $5,000.
Well, it's gone the way of cars, hasn't it? So I think everyone's financing a lot of this stuff and getting it on loans. So people don't look at the ticket price; they look at the payment price.
Yeah, I can't afford the payments. But
yeah.
Again, in the same way, some people will tell you, I've been out in the sales and look how much I've saved. And I'll counter argue that, no, look how much you've spent.
Oh, yeah. It's the same people going, oh, I've spent all this and my tax bill was less. I'm like, as was your income. It's not the same thing.
But so that was a lot of kit for the money.
That was a lot. This here. So this is actually what I shot a worldwide campaign on. Can I say what it was? I don't think I can actually. Anyway, so I shot a worldwide campaign on this. The 90mm 2.8 L macro. Oh, I also shot an ice cream advert for this, for the wafers. Obviously, I can't remember the name of the brand, but it's still on the packaging now in the shops. It makes me laugh. I made a hedgehog out of ice cream with little flakes coming out of it, little face. The L macro series lenses are insane. Now, you can save a lot of money by buying the £500 non-L version, and that's what I actually owned. So I had a 5 DSR and that, but I rented this lens in for a particular job because we needed a little bit more oomph. And of course, once it's printed on paper, you can't see it. But again, 2,400. So this is decent money here, $2,500 for this, but still less than a new body.
I think what's almost interesting in a lot of this is your spend here of that £2,400 is weighted heavily on the lens and not on the camera body.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. The bodies haven't improved really since what, 2010?
I mean, practically the pixel count's gone up, but the actual raw image quality within the same ecosystem. I mean, if you obviously you've moved from one system to another, and you've had a significant upgrade in image quality. Yeah,
when you go from crop to full frame, we'll get into that later. But yes, it's definitely weighted that way. Now, the last one, I did do a mirrorless one because the price of the R5 has dropped significantly if you buy it used. You get an R5 for £2,000. They were like $4,500, £5,000. Yeah. So someone's taken a £3,000 hit. And I know someone's going to go, depreciation and tax deductions. Go and get an accountant. And the 24 to 72.8, this comes in at nearly £4,000. And the image quality from this won't be noticeably better than any of the others. It'd be better than the 5D Mark II for sure, but the 5 DSRs and the 1DXs,
and
negligible.
I mean, it's I suppose I've always looked at these, with the R series and so on. Unless you're using the RF lenses, the whole thing doesn't make sense. Like people buy that and then use an adapter to still use their EF, which is perfectly valid because it gets you going.
Yeah.
But the only advantage of these cameras moving forward is using the RF lenses, which you got here,
which are phenomenal lenses. But this is what I don't get. People buy the GFX that I've got and then convert full frame lenses onto it and go, only vignettes a bit. I'm like, why have you bought a medium format camera if you can't afford the lenses?
Yeah. You're just nerfing your purchase.
Yeah, it's pointless. But there we go. Now, from these systems, let me know in the comments below, can you work out what Alexis uses and, what it is that she's shooting this work here on? And we'll see the answer. You don't know, do you? You want to hazard a guess?
I wouldn't have a Scooby.
Can you guess how many lights she owns?
Well, it's whether you're talking actual lights here. I mean, I'm going to say one light. but with obviously bounce cards and various, sort of,
Jiggery pokery.
yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that later. I'll stop that screen recording. Winner, winner. There we go. Thought we'd finish the audio then by mistake, but that's just the pause on that. We're all good. We're still rolling. We're still cooking. But there we go. So that's the kit, I guess, we're looking at here on MPB today. So big thanks to MPB. They have been one of the easiest sponsors to work with. I was like, I'd like to do this. And they went, yeah, go on then. Give it a whirl. And I quite enjoy doing it, to be honest. I like putting together little shopping baskets and
Yeah, and it's when you look at the value in some of that, it's incredible. Like, if the fact that we've all started off in various places. I mean, I fell into the same trap. My first camera I bought was a Canon 650D. That was my first ever camera purchase. I mean, it was for a significant birthday. But I mean, I had no plans to do any of this at all.
Well, yeah, it's quite. Neither of us did really, did we? It was
No, I mean, it was later that year when I actually got to meet you. And then you look at, right, you get bitten by the bug, you say, right, I now want to go off and do this. And then I bought my first 60, which again, initially, because you do I bought now the full frame camera, everything's going to now look immediately better. And all of a sudden it looks exactly the same as what you've just been shooting on your copy. You're like, it's only later when you get to understand it. And really in low light is where these things really shine.
Yeah.
And at the time I was a gigging music photographer. So it did pay me back in spades moving to the 6D on that.
Yeah, and it's we're going to skip into we'll talk about sensors now, actually, because that's a very good point. I was going to be later in the video, but I think it's a good segue when you went from crop sensor to full frame and didn't really see the difference. So there's always a comment somewhere in the comment section. Well, there's two comments actually. One is, I shoot micro four thirds. It's just as good as full frame. No, it's not. No. And the other is, do I need a full frame to be a pro? And the answer is no. But kind of yes. So sensors all things here's the problem. If you compare a 5D Mark I from 2000 to the latest Fuji X100V, whatever thing it is, crop sensor, that will be a better camera. But we're not comparing, a 25-year...
You've got to compare sort of apples for apples, haven't you?
Yeah. All things being equal, the bigger your sensor, the better your image. But it comes with a drawback. It comes with a few drawbacks. Number one, it's slower to shoot with. So if you're a sports photographer, don't go and bash out a Hasselblad during a football game. You'll have a nightmare. Number two, it takes longer to record the file through the actual computer. You can't do high-speed bursts because even as the processors get better, the file sizes get bigger. And really, it's not changed much over the years.
And you spend a lot of money on tether cables.
Oh my God, tether cables. Yeah.
And you're still limited by that.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's not the computer. Well, it might be the computer, I don't know, is it? But there's a bottleneck.
I think, and again, the bottleneck is because you've got so much data you're trying to ram down the cable.
Smashing through 100 megapixel medium format things. But so let's go through all the different sensors. You've got your medium format at the top end, and they are called 645 sensors, despite the fact I don't believe there's a single 645 digital sensor. I think they're all slightly below. And the Fuji's a little bit below that, and the Pentax is a bit below that, as is the Leica. But medium format is basically just bigger than full frame, and it comes in various crop factors, much like normal cameras. Medium format is the choice of professional commercial photographers. Whether you're shooting fashion, you're shooting sport, not for press, but for commercial use, where you have, it's a medium format camera. It's very rare that you go on a set of a big job and they haven't got a medium format camera. Even on a tight budget, you whack out the Fuji GFX instead of the Phase. They are better resolution. They have higher bit depth of colors, and someone in the comments is going to go, but you can't print the bit depth of color. No, you can't. But when you're doing it in post, you've got more room to move. You've got bigger files. You've got. Although all things being equal, there's fewer pixels per centimeter of sensor, for example. So that also looks really nice. So your photon sites are
much larger.
Yeah, which is great. You have a better depth with a bigger sensor. So, and this is where it comes to the horses for courses. If you're shooting wide open and you want that narrow depth of field, you can get that much better with a medium format camera compared to a full frame, compared to a crop sensor, compared to a micro four thirds. Yeah. If, like me, you want your product to be sharp and all in focus, but you also want depth, medium format, because you can be at f16, fill the frame, get brilliant sharpness from the lens, because most medium format lenses are good between like f10 to f16, f18, before they get chromatic aberrations, which is another important point. And then still have that depth and 3D look. You get a better 3D look. You get better color reproduction because the sensor's bigger and it collects more data and it has better bit depth. It has better dynamic range as well. The lenses are better. And because the lens is better, the lens is bigger and the sensor's bigger, you can stop down the lens more before you get chromatic aberrations. Now, I don't give a fuck about chromatic aberrations. It doesn't concern me in the slightest. I don't go, oh no, I've got chromatic. I was like, is it in focus? Is the depth of field enough? Yes or no? Of course. When we've got a big technical camera like the Cambo we've got behind us, we try and shoot for technical perfection. And if we can't get it, we compromise and we don't care. Like if even at the extreme movements of the camera, we're like, we got to go to f32. We go to f32 and that's fine. So yeah, lenses are better on medium format cameras. There's not a single full frame lens that can compete with a medium format lens.
No, and especially as you do use some of the sort of medium format film camera lenses,
6x7, which are massive.
They're absolutely massive. So because the sensor is smaller than the area that the lens covers, you're only using the absolute best part of the lens, and this is an important part.
It's like putting a full frame. So the equivalent for my camera is like putting a full frame lens on a GoPro and just going to let sensor shot. So I've got a 6x7 centimeter lens on a less than 645 camera. It's a great way to do it. And even at the extreme movements, we never get vignetting, we never get light fall off. You can go the full hog of the camera. Of course, you could put a 4x5 centimeter large format lens in it and get even better. But a lot of them don't have the right coatings for digital until you go to a digital large format lens, and then there's all kinds of mess of money. So that's medium format. Full frame is the professional who doesn't shoot major campaigns camera or who needs speed.
Yes.
So sometimes you shoot a worldwide campaign on a 5D or R5, whatever the hell they're called nowadays, 1R, R1, 1XD, something or other, because you can't shoot fast enough in the medium format. Sometimes we do that. And it might be a burst shot we're doing. But I mean, for splashes, we use lasers and medium format anyway, but there may be something in it where we want loads of stills really quickly. A lot of fashion photographers, when they're shooting lookbooks or editorial, will use full frame. You don't get the same bit depth, you don't get the same resolution, you don't get as good lenses, but you can work fast and the file sizes aren't mammoth. Crop sensor is obsolete because for the price of a cheap crop sensor, you can get a professional grade secondhand full frame body.
Yeah.
I don't understand why camera brands are making crop sensor cameras.
Well, because it's having that entry-level retail price.
Yeah, I understand it. Like, I've got friends who won't buy a secondhand car. They won't buy a secondhand camera. Like, I'm like, buy it used. I'm not paying depreciation. For the price of it's going to cost over $1,000 for a crop sensor camera. You can get a 50 megapixel professional full frame camera.
Yeah.
And a lens. And
again, if you look at some of the value we were looking at earlier, why would you buy a new one?
Exactly. And then, so that's full frame. Full frame is you won't see anybody on set with a crop sensor camera. And of course, I'm sure someone can find the exception to the rule. But generally speaking, no one's rocking up on set with a crop sensor. Crop sensors had their place in the 2010s for sports and wildlife photographers because you get a 7D.
Yeah, the 7D. It was the crop sensor 1DX, basically.
Put the 300 millimeter instead of the 400 millimeter lens and it save yourself a bag of cash and get not too bad image quality. There's nothing wrong with a crop sensor. You can absolutely shoot, technically, a worldwide campaign on one. But you can get a full frame for less.
Yeah.
And it's better. Then Micro Four Thirds. Even smaller sensor, even smaller lens, creates great image quality. Not as good as a 5DSR. However, if I was going to travel the world and take a real camera with me, it would be a Micro Four Thirds. Or a crop set. Well, the thing is, why would you get a Micro Four Thirds and you get a Fuji X100
XT,
whatever they are, like, or a Ricoh GR3, which is APS-C? I don't know, but I mean, interchangeable lenses, small factor,
light, tiny little lenses that weigh nothing.
Yeah, I'd take my phone. I'd take an iPhone. I've got like an iPhone 11 or something. It's not a new one. I mean, I do. That is literally what I'm selling loads of my personal cameras off. My whole collection is going because I don't use them because the phone's darn good. And if I want better than the phone, I take a 5D.
Yeah. And this is back to, Chase Jarvis's comment that the best camera is the one you have with you.
Yeah.
If you're not inclined to take it out, it's no good sat at home.
No, and I'm never inclined to take a camera outside. Someone messaged me. Who was it? Oh, it was Richard Bradbury. And he's like, oh, have you taken any pictures with your Fuji, like the family? And I was like, my Fuji has not left the studio. It sits on that stand. Because he's really good. He goes out and takes pictures outside of work. I don't know, that died off with me at some point. I still take pictures, but more no, oh, look at this cool thing.
The only thing you generally take outside of the studio now is on your film cameras.
They're not even them anymore. I've not used them in 9 months, which is why I'm selling all of them apart from my first camera, which I'll obviously never sell. So I've got my Bronica, and I think I've also got, where is it? Up on the shelves behind the hazy light, I've got my first 5D Mark II that I did all my work on and made all my money on.
It's literally held together with tape.
It is literally held together with tape. We should take a photo of it one day, like a hero product shot. Maybe we'll do that. But yeah, that's had a hard life. I mean, I say it's my first camera. It's on its third shutter. It's had 2 PCB boards.
Right, so it's Trigger's broom at this point. It's what we're saying.
The screen's been replaced. The wheel's been replaced. The top wheel's been replaced. The card door's been replaced. The battery kit's been replaced. The prism's been replaced. Because I dropped it and smashed all the internals. Did that bit myself, actually, to replace that. It was really fiddly. And there's a very faint fingerprint on it as well. But yeah, so the bigger the sensor, the better it is. You can't argue that a smaller sensor takes better images. But you can argue that no one's taken a phase 1 on a round the world trip unless they're an absolute...
nor to shoot a football game.
Exactly. So it's just the right tool for the job. And ours happens to be...
But I think, especially when you look at the price of some things, for example, second-hand on MPP.
I know.
100%, why would you buy a brand new crop sensor camera when you would just buy a second-hand full-frame one?
I know.
I think that's the takeaway from this, really, is just do that.
It's weird. It's a weird parts of the photography world to be in, that the tech was so good so many years ago, it's now so cheap that new cameras are redundant unless they're the top of the line. And even then, I mean, you could argue that they're pretty redundant, because I think I'd buy obviously if I was a professional wedding photographer, I'd be rocking the R5.
Yeah.
Silent. It would be the reason. Silent. Rather than ka-chunk, 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 like silent cameras. That'd be the reason. Nothing else. There'd be no other selling point to me. If I was a professional sports photographer, I'd be rocking the 1R or R1, whatever.
Yeah, the R1, yeah.
Just because, you need to have the same camera that everyone else has.
Yeah.
Because if something goes wrong, you can turn around and go, mate, my batteries are all just discharged because a cup of water fell in. Could I have a battery? And they've got you covered.
Well, which is practically waterproof anyway, those things.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason I shoot Canon, because everyone I knew shot Canon, so I shot Canon. And then it was always like, can I borrow that lens? Can I borrow this?
And Canon always had the biggest ecosystem with lenses, both native and third party.
Yeah, it's always been good like that. And same with the reason I bought the Black Magics, because you've got them.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, you've got them, then I can pinch yours.
Yeah, exactly.
Pinching that to do a podcast.
And do on the reg. So that makes complete sense. And again, in terms of image quality for the spend, unbeatable.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the video world. I mean,
good bang for buck.
Absolute disruptors, really.
I mean, and again, if I started today and I was doing YouTube and photography, I'd buy the R5. So I've got one camera to rule them all.
Yeah.
But I didn't, so I've not. But yeah, there we go. So, software that pros use. So I did a video, and it was a podcast actually, and everyone was like, meh, 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 as they are in the comments, because I was like, we don't use Adobe. And I was like, I use Photoshop. I was like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Photoshop's like Adobe's saving grace at the moment.
It's kind of the one thing that Adobe do. Well, I mean, I'd say the Trinity, really, and they're all graphic design tools, by the way.
Yeah.
All the movie tools, apart from After Effects, pretty bad. Premiere Pro is literally unusable.
Oh, it's horrific.
So apologies to any Premiere Pro users out there, but you're wrong.
Yeah, there's no argument for Premiere Pro. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through what everyone uses and why. So we'll start with video, because you just mentioned on that, and it's DaVinci.
Yeah, for two reasons, really. One, just again, if we're comparing directly with Adobe products, obviously other ones are available.
Yeah.
DaVinci Resolve, in terms of stability alone, if it had no other benefit, is 100 times better than Premiere Pro. Now, every editor who works on Premiere Pro will relate to the statement I'm about to make. By the time you finish your edit is called my edit _ recovered 14 _ final.
Yeah, and then it often has copy towards the end of it as well when it's really gone wrong.
Until the point where it corrupts so badly you can't recover it anymore.
Yeah.
And then you have to start the whole project from scratch.
Yeah, that's pretty much Adobe's video software.
So stability alone, forget the fact that in terms of the grading tools and everything else, DaVinci is infinitely better than Premiere. Again, I mean, I was a Premiere user for a better part of 11 years.
Likewise.
And it just got to the point where it became literally unusable. And I had to just move away. And then I bought a Blackmagic camera, and then I got the license for that.
Same.
But equally, I would rather use, and this is important as well, the free version of Resolve versus the paid version of Premiere all day long. It's like, there's no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, DaVinci's, it's not just that it's stable. It is stable, which is great, because most Adobe products are not. But the color grading.
Yeah, it's a different level.
I know these people going, it's the same file, it's the same sliders. No. It may well technically be that, but whatever algorithm is used within their sliders is better.
But it's not only that. I mean, because it's built for, well, it's going to be controversial here and say professional workflows, as in everything from Hollywood movies to broadcast.
Yeah.
I mean, they use DaVinci Resolve to grade the first Avengers movie. That's the level that is at. And it's, I think, primarily down to not only is the algorithms and everything better, but because it's not layer based, it's node based.
Node based is good.
All of a sudden now it becomes infinitely more powerful.
Yeah. I mean, so that's video. For stills, it is kind of a bit of a botch job nowadays. Now, everybody uses in the professional world Capture One. That is industry standard around the world. There are many other photo editors, and none of them are as good as Capture One. And someone said it doesn't do this in the comments. I was like, go and double check. It reads the raw files better.
Yeah,
it does. The sliders work better. The export times faster. Stability better. Tethering flawless. And this is also the reason why everyone uses Macs in the industry. If you're using it on Apple, you get all of the remote access as well, where you can walk around with an iPad looking at the session. You can give different iPads and different people different accessibility. So the clients can only rate it, but you can fire it and do white balance changes and adjustments on your iPad. My assistant's walking around with it on his phone, so he can do lighting tests and adjust stuff and see without having to come back to the computer each time. It has a remote server you can instantly set up so people off-site can watch the shoot as well. It's better. It's stable. I think it's probably crashed twice in all the years I've used it. And normally that's because I've just smashed like 500, 150 mega. It's probably the computer that's crashed rather than software.
Yeah.
And that is industry standard. I don't care who says, well, I use Lightroom and a Windows machine. That's great. I'm sure it works fine for you. But in the industry, this is what's used.
Yes.
And it just is. Now, where Adobe wins is Photoshop.
Yeah, that is the best bit of software of its kind on the planet.
Yeah. And so what happens is you then have to pay for both, which is infuriating. So you pay your monthly subscription or annual subscription, or you can actually buy Capture One outright as well, which is good.
Yeah.
I like that feature. For that, and you have to pay for Lightroom and Photoshop. But Photoshop is also industry standard. There is all these other softwares that people mention all the time in the comments. I'm sure they do a great job. And if you're not in the industry, go ahead and use them. But if you want to work in the commercial industry, you need to be able to function Capture One and Photoshop.
Yes.
Because that is what people use. You might have a different workflow, or you might like a feature in something else. There's things I don't like about Capture One. There's things I hate about Photoshop, but it's industry standard. So it is what we use.
I mean, at no point if someone sending you a file for retouching, expecting it back in anything other than a PSD or a PSB.
Exactly. And it's the same, like when everyone's like, oh, but Windows machines are better than Macs. We have to use Macs because without Macs and without iPads and without iPhones, we can't use the infrastructure of Capture One properly because it doesn't work on Windows. And it's like
there's that. And I'm actually going to give you another thing, which is why if you're a visual creative, specifically a photographer, and to a lesser extent a videographer, why you would not use Windows over Macs.
Oh yeah.
The fact you can preview a thumbnail.
Yeah.
Just by pressing the space bar.
Yeah.
Rather than having to open every single file. That's ridiculous. It's like, come on, Windows. It's like 2025. Get with the program, yo.
I know it's yeah. The preview thing is quite. I didn't even realize Windows didn't have it until I used the Windows machine within this Mac. That I use for a scanner. Basically, I have to have Windows. There's one particular type of film scanner I've got, which is frustrating, and a whole world of dongles as well. But yeah, there we go. Right, so that's software. What I want to do now is dive into this interview with Alexis. It's short, it's brief, it's quite interesting for those who are looking to get into the industry. And, you know, I mean, I said this last time, but it didn't stop people. Don't be a dick. This is an actual real photographer who's agreed to come on the podcast. This is not some YouTube photographer. And last time we did this, people were dicks because
Yeah.
well, next week's episode we'll discuss why this is. I've got some theories going on, but we'll leave that for another week. But yeah, so that's that. Let's jump into this, and then we're going to talk about why it is harder than ever to get into photography after this interview. So I'm joined with Alexis. Alexis, let us know what do you do? What is your job? What is it you do?
So I'm a commercial food, drink, still life photographer, based in the UK, and yeah, that's my job. That's my job.
So on paper, your job is identical to mine.
Yeah.
But I'd say it's pretty unlikely that we're up for the same job.
Pretty unlikely.
Yeah. So how does what you do differ to what I do? Why are we have the exact same job yet don't compete on work? How does that work?
I think the things I find interesting to photograph are different from yours. And even if it's the same thing, I think we'd interpret it in a different way. Yeah, we bring our own kind of different point of view to what we find interesting about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So how would you describe your point of view, your style? How, if like, I think I've already shown people your work before going into this actually. So, but how would you describe your work to somebody? If somebody said, what does your image look like? What would you say?
I think it's very concept driven. I think about the idea before I think about how it would actually look like.
Yep.
And it's often either something from my upbringing, my cultural upbringing, or from what's relevant in society currently, for example. It tends to be a bit sort of retro-y, and you can tell that it's soft. It's soft. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's safe to say that we could both photograph the same item. I'll see if I can find an example where we've both photographed the same item. There must be something between our portfolios where we've both shot the same thing. I'll have a look and see if I can find one. And if I can, I'll make it pop up now, actually. And then how different they look. And I think a lot of people think that, oh, your job is a still life photographer. And that's it. That's all that like defines you. Whereas I think when you're working at the higher end, that is probably the thing that defines you the least. You know, because we get asked to shoot. I mean, now I shoot portraits as well, but even before I did that, we shot a lot of commercial jobs with people in them because people wanted my style with people. And that's probably. Did you shoot people for money before you did it as a test shoot? Did you have people involved in? No, did test shoots first with people. I've seen you've got people in your work now, like faces and moving humans that talk. So when did you start photography then? How long have you been doing this for?
Professionally, probably coming up 4 years. And before that, kind of as a hobby, not really super consistently, like since maybe I was a teenager.
Yeah. And then how long did you work at it consistently before becoming a professional? Like how long was that for?
So I did it alongside my full-time job for maybe 2 years, like during COVID, and then coming up to 2 years, like having it as my main job.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so have you, I don't actually know this about you. Have you always had normal jobs before then?
Yes.
Yes. How was the transition from monthly paycheck to feast and famine going for you? How are you finding that?
I'm learning.
Yeah. It's like whenever I have a friend who's doesn't have a business, they're like, "You just made all that money. Why didn't you buy this?" I'm like, "Because I might never make money ever again. Like
Yeah,
this could be the
yeah.
last ever paycheck." Yeah. So how's that for you?
It's definitely getting used to it, um, and needing it being much more aware of what's going in and out. Because I think when you're in a salaried job, you kind of just you know that every month something's going to come in, and it's a very relaxed. It's more of a relaxed mindset.
Mm.
It's still definitely an adjustment, I would say, especially because last year was also not a great year in general for photography. So it's difficult to say whether that's reflective of how things usually are and that sort of thing. So it's still an adjustment.
Yes, yeah. I think last year was horrific. I don't know many people who had an okay year. I know someone who had a really good year. It was like their best year ever, but it was just pure happenstance that they landed some huge contract. And outside of that contract, nothing else happened. But the contract was monstrous. So without putting specific numbers out there, I assume you've done a shoot so far which paid more than your monthly income before for like a day's shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how's that as a weird concept of a
Also weird because the higher the number, the more pressure it seems to put on the job.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
and then like you said, it's a different mindset of yes, it's a huge number, but I might not have any work for the next 6 months. So it's not, is it really that huge?
No, exactly. And I think, I mean, I had a really weird start to professional photography in that once I started shooting ad campaigns rather than, doing what I was doing before that in photography, my first 6 months I made an insane amount of money and I just thought that was normal. So I used to spend a paycheck as soon as it came in. So I was like, well, they just keep coming in, don't they? It's brilliant. And then we hit the first dry spell and I had 6 months without a single inquiry. And I was like, oh my God, I was messaging my web guy, Ben. I was like, Ben, is my email account broken? Like, nothing's coming in. He's like, I'll just send you a test email now. It came straight through. I was like, oh no, I've, I've really messed up. And then last year, I think we did 3 main jobs. That's it. It was pretty barren. I think it was my lowest earning year since doing commercial work. I can't remember what year that would have been in, but way pre-pandemic. It was my worst
Mm.
earning year in that sense. But still paid more than a day job did.
All right, that's good then.
Which is, yeah, can't complain. So it
Yeah.
was still a better salary than I used to be a project manager in London. It was better paid than that. But I'd say the stress was higher because I was constantly worrying because most of the jobs came in I had a good start and I was like, oh, this is great. I don't know what everyone's complaining about. And then it was like 9 months of nothing followed by a strong finish. But those 9 months of nothing in the middle, I did get a little bit. I started looking at jobs, and then I realised I couldn't find a job that would pay me enough money without moving back to London. So yeah, I don't know. Have you had the thought of going back to work? Have you had that moment where you go, well, this is ridiculous. What am I doing?
Here and there.
Yeah.
Here and there,
Most mornings.
yeah, here and there, and catch myself on LinkedIn looking at jobs, and then most of the time I start to remember how miserable I was in my previous job, and that usually stops me or something.
Yeah, I think that's also worth considering, isn't it? It's like, yes, I could make either the same money or have secure income, but do I actually want to do that?
Yeah.
I think it's different when you're making much less than you used to make. I think if you go from a 6-figure salary and you had like a bad year last year, made 30 grand, that'd be quite a culture shock. But again, most people in the UK aren't on 6-figure salaries. And for those in the US, a 6-figure salary here is not the same as a 6-figure salary in the US.
No.
It's a lot more. It's sort of the same as making $300,000 to $400,000 in the US with cost of living, health insurance, and all the other things that we don't have. I mean, we have a cost of living crisis, but it's not. My friend showed me their grocery bill from the States, and I could eat out in a restaurant every day for less than that here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's insane. So yeah, horses for courses, I guess. So you have an agent, you have my old agent.
Yes.
How's having an agent? Actually, no. First of all, did you know agents existed when you started photography?
Nope.
No, super. Yeah, no, neither did I. How's that all working? How's having an agent? How does that feel compared to just, I don't know, raw dogging it through life by yourself?
Oh, dog.
Yeah, that's probably not a phrase I'm allowed to use, is it? We'll be far enough into the podcast that I can get away with that without YouTube spotting it.
It's definitely very different from obviously not having an agent. It means that all the logistics and all the money stuff is taken care of, which is amazing. Because you'll know that like lots of photographers don't like that side of things and they're not good at the business side of things. So it's great to just be able to just pass it over that way. Although for me, because I was fortunate to sign quite early on in my career, it feels like I've needed to take a bigger jump sooner. In doing kind of small jobs to like reasonably sized jobs, like the mentality, like what those jobs actually entails is
So
very
for,
different.
for those who don't, what was the last job you did by yourself? What was that sort of?
I think it might have been like a local restaurant job,
Yeah, and how much would they have paid you?
like 300.
Yeah, you'd gone in, shot their menu, I assume, and
Yeah,
yeah, and then without giving numbers away, because you're not allowed to, how different was that to say shooting the 7-Up ad campaign?
like the completely, like a completely different job.
You had to have did you Liam, didn't you, on set? Was
Yes.
Liam with you? Massive Liam, like 7'8". So it was like he can reach the lights while standing up without getting a ladder out. He's brilliant. Did a job with him earlier this year, actually. He's lovely. Well, on that job, so you went from shooting by yourself, I assume, rocking up in an Uber with a backpack with kit.
Yeah.
What was like the logistics of the 7-Up thing? Like, how was that different? Who did you have with you?
So there was obviously at least LPA was there. They weren't producing it though, so they were just dealing with costs and quotations and stuff like that.
Strictly agent, yeah.
Strictly agent. And then there was the agency who had 7-Up as the client. But they weren't producing it. They outsourced X staff to produce it. So there was like a separate set of producers.
Yeah.
And there was a whole other team doing the motion stuff. So it was a few different kind of groups of people.
So how many people were in the room on the shoot day?
I don't know, maybe 50-ish. Maybe.
Yeah. It's quite a different, yeah.
Yeah.
You go from backpack yourself and a restaurant owner to 50 people in a room.
Yeah.
How was it stressful? Was it?
It was stressful, I think, because that was the first time I'd done a pretty like a big job.
Yeah.
But in like looking back at it now, maybe it was slightly less stressful because there were a lot of other people there helping you to make it work.
Yeah, there's a whole like it's really hard to mess up a big job because there's so many people in the room. Like, so I've done big jobs and I had like a stomach flu once, and I was literally spent the whole time in the bathroom throwing up. And we still got through the job because I got my assistants there, I got my digitech there. You know, we've got a great styling team. They'd got their assistants there. There was like prop stylists. My agent was there as well, like covering for me, so no one noticed that I was constantly throwing up. And yeah, it makes all those people. It makes life a lot easier, and you can just focus on that really important. Like, is this right? Is this the shot? What did you shoot that campaign, and what camera did you use?
Canon. It was a Canon 5DS.
Was it your own one you used?
Yes.
Yeah, you took your cameras and then rented lights, or someone brought lights.
Yeah. Oh no, sorry, I tell a lie. It was the Fuji camera.
Oh, the medium format one.
Yes.
Yeah, they're nice, aren't they?
Yeah.
Apart from the very complicated menu systems, I bet Liam was fuming that you had a Fuji. He hates telling me those up.
No, he was fine.
Was he okay with it?
Yeah, he was fine. My assistant was Sam Royston, and he'd used it a lot, so he
brilliant.
Was really confident with it. And I shot with a Fuji before, so like a mirrorless one, so I was a little bit familiar with it. It was
You'd
'cause
never
the
seen that
time-
camera before, had you? Before that
No,
day, yeah. And I
no.
think a lot of people don't realize this. Like when we go to a shoot, I've turned up to shoots before and they've handed me like a Hasselblad, and I'm like, I don't know how to turn it on. And
Yeah.
it's like I can work out. For some reason, phase one seems really intuitive, and Hasselblad seems backwards. And one shoot, they handed me a Nikon with a zoom lens on it, and I don't know if you know this, but like Canon zooms go one way, and a Nikon zoom lens zooms the other way.
Oh.
So if you want to zoom in, you go counterclockwise on a Nikon and clockwise with a Canon, and it threw me off so badly. I was really, I was like, oh, this is a nightmare. I keep obviously the shots were fine, but it felt like I was waiting for ages to get the zoom right. And
Yeah. That seems counterintuitive for it to go the other way. I'm used to it
yeah,
going
exactly.
clockwise.
Although Sigma lenses as well, if you buy Sigma zoom for a Canon, it zooms the Nikon way, which is what I now have. And Fuji zooms the correct way. So I've got a Fuji zoom and a Sigma zoom, and they both zoom in opposite directions, which infuriates me. But, I mean, were you stressed about using the camera you'd never seen before?
I had other things I was stressing about.
Yeah. What were you stressing about? What was your main concern? What was your...
My main concern was that the creatives did not really have a plan for what the shots were to look like.
Yeah, it's that uncertainty, isn't it? But it goes two ways, because you get that side of it and it's like, oh my word, no one knows what it's going to look like. And then you get the other side where they've done a CGI drawing of exactly what it must look like. And you're going, well, I hope physics do physics on the day, because if not, we're in real trouble here. And it's, it could be tricky. And then, but what lighting brand did you use?
Pro Photo.
Pro Photo. Did you use those before?
No.
No.
Oh, well, I maybe did once or twice, like for another job, but I don't own them.
Yeah. Yeah. And quite nice lights, I think.
Yeah.
Did you have the packs and heads or just the heads?
And the packs and the heads.
Packs and heads, yeah. Yeah, they make a nice pop when you fire them. It feels feels very much like you're in the room when you take a shot with those. It's like, oh yes, this is brilliant. So yeah, that's good. So that was your first big job, I guess. And then in between that, test shoots, how often are you testing?
I like to... Previously I was trying to do one once a week, but that was too much. So it's kind of been once a month, and I try, like, because when it was earlier on in my career, I'd do everything myself. Like I'd style it all myself and prop it all myself. And now I'm really trying to kind of improve, obviously. So I've been trying to get a little team together to do it, like work with a food stylist and models and prop stylists and stuff.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference, doesn't it, to the final product, I think. So in terms of going back to camera gigs, that's what everyone's interested in. When you started taking photography seriously, what camera did you have? I can't remember. It was a Fuji, wasn't it?
Fuji X-T4.
X-T4, yeah. So this is it's the same camera that 3 other people I know who started photography and got agents almost straight away used as well. It's like a weird...
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a big enough sample to go, that's definitely a contributing
factor. That's the factor.
But like, people, no, I'd imagine it's more that people who choose that camera for whatever reason are better photographers. I
don't know. I think it was a vanity thing for me.
But mate, I think it was for all of them, because it looks like an old retro camera, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe that's the key, And then what do you use nowadays? What's your go-to kit? What do you shoot on?
The Canon 5DS, and I have one lens, Sigma 1.4, I think, 50 millimeter.
Everything on that.
Yeah. One
light, one lens, one camera.
One light, one lens. Although I did get a video light recently. Don't ask me the brand name. I honestly don't know. It was whatever was cheap.
What's the flash that you're using? Which flash do you have?
It's a Pixapro Lumi something.
How many watts have you got? What's your wattage?
200.
200 watts. 200 watt light, 1.4 lens, camera. Very nice. That's a nice minimalist kit.
Yes.
We're trying to go minimalist in the studio at the moment, which is why everything's on eBay.
I saw you were selling a bunch of stuff.
Everything's going. I had a mini panic attack because I was just like, there's too much stuff. I was like, I've got 5 camera bags, and I have one camera that sits on my studio stand with a lens on it, and that's all I use. And I was like, why am I holding on to all this stuff?
Yeah.
and yeah, had a mini freak out, so started selling everything. And
How do you find selling on eBay? Because I tried to
it's
sell.
horrific. It's
Yeah,
horrific.
it's really bad.
Yeah, I've got 2 legal cases open for fraud. Damaged packaging, which is fine. It's like someone, if it turns up damaged, obviously you just refund the person. And like some of it, they send me a picture of it, and I'm like, great. I'll just like Royal Mail's insurance is completely useless. Like, you can insure a package with Royal Mail. I insured one for whatever £100. They're like, yeah, we'll offer you a book of stamps as compensation. I was like, yeah, no,
great.
yeah. So I don't insure stuff anymore. So if it turns up damaged, it just turns up damaged, and I get them to return it to me, unless they send me a picture and it's smashed into a million pieces. And I would say, would you mind ever so much popping it in the bin? It'd be very greatly appreciated. Yeah, it's not great. But I mean, I would send it all to MPB, but it's not the sort of stuff MPB wants. Like, it's not lenses and cameras of modern ilk. It's like vintage stuff. It's like old cameras, lights, broncolor kit that I don't use. I've got 15 broncolor heads, and I shoot with a 1 light setup. I don't need 15 broncolor heads. And then I've got a backup Bowen system, which I use more than my broncolor kit, because my broncolor kit's kept in storage to keep it safe, whereas I leave the Bowens kit out. So I end up shooting Bowens anyway because it's already out.
Yeah.
So God knows. I don't know what I'm thinking. So yeah, that's all going. I like your minimalist approach though. 50mm lens, 1 camera, 1 light. What modifiers have you got for the light?
I have a P70, I think, reflector. I have a beauty dish, like a white one.
Yeah.
And like 2 soft boxes, like 1 huge one and 1 maybe like A2 size.
Nice.
That's about it. And
nice
a scrim, like a scrim, like a foldable frame.
Oh yeah, we've got those. They're good. They are, especially if you're traveling somewhere. You can just pop it in a light stand bag. And nice. And that's all the camera gear you've ever owned then, really? That Fuji and then onto the Canon?
When I first started, the only camera I had was maybe a 20-year-old Sony, like when digital cameras first became popular, those small. So that's what I used for ages. But that's it, yeah.
Nice. And then was there a big, because the Fuji's crop sensor, isn't it, that you had? Was there a big difference in image quality between the Fuji and the Canon, going from crop sensor to full frame?
Yes.
So I see all these things on the internet going, crop from micro four thirds is just as good as full frame. Crop sensor is just like, no, it's not. Like, the bigger the sensor, the better the image. Like
it is. It does make a huge difference, and it gives you more flexibility because I only have the 1 lens. I can only go as close as, a certain distance.
Yeah.
And having the extra pixels really helps.
Oh, let me give you a cheap hack to get closer without buying another lens. Go and buy some extension tubes.
Oh, the ones that you like stack on top, like behind the lens.
Yes. But unless you want to photograph a grain of salt, you only need really thin ones. No. Like one that's about this big means that you've got to focus so close. It's the first time I bought some, I was like, nothing works. Then my friend was like, yeah, you need to be about 1 centimeter away from the subject with that in place. I was like, oh, I need a smaller one. So yeah, get the really skinny ones. Try and give that a go. They're quite good. You don't need too much light, and it's a nice way to get macro without spending money on macro lenses, which are very expensive and quite niche. I don't think I own a macro lens anymore. No, I don't think I do. I think I sold them all. They're all gone on eBay. But yeah, that's great. So I'll leave you on a bit of a difficult question. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to get into commercial photography, have an agent, shoot ad campaigns? What would you suggest they do in order to get to that point in their career?
I was having a chat with another photographer friend about like commercial photography and industry and stuff. And I actually think it's really important to have self-awareness in the sense of, who are you as a person? What do I want to make? Because I feel like, at least for me, all the technical stuff came after I decided what I wanted to take photos of. And knowing all the technical stuff didn't give me any ideas. Not anything really very interesting, in my opinion. So I think kind of exercising your creative part of your brain is a good, like, generating ideas and exposing yourself to stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
I think from what I've seen from photographers who've been successful, the majority of them have a low technical knowledge. And what I see from photographers who are unsuccessful is they have a very, very high technical knowledge, often also about things that have absolutely no use whatsoever. It's not even like applied technical knowledge. It's just like a weird knowledge of like technical parts of photography. And from those I've seen who've been highly successful, they have, like you say, it's all about knowing who you are and being self-aware and being able to draw from your inner self, I suppose. And yeah, like you say, putting yourself out there, getting yourself into places where you can experience new things, see new things, maybe see the same thing but with somebody else with you from a different perspective. And, that tends to be where the good ideas come from. And I mean, photography is so easy nowadays. It's not like it's a difficult thing to do. So the only thing that really separates photographers, I find, is their like viewpoints on the world and how they like portray it, and that's how you win the jobs, I suppose.
Yeah, I also think that I think I'm an introvert, but I think that connecting with other people is really important and has really helped me. Like, even if there are other photographers or stylists or anyone related, I've often found that later down the line, those connections are always helpful in one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think like even down to networking, sort of like getting out there and being around people. And like I'm likewise, I'm an introvert. Given my own choice, I wouldn't see anybody for months on end. I'd just be sat in my studio doing my thing. But it's normally when you go out, or at least when I go out, when we go to Soho, go for some drinks, go for some lunch, go for some more drinks, meet people up after work. And normally the next week is when I have most of my ideas, having met loads of new people I've never met before.
Exactly. And I don't think for me, I don't mean it in a like schmooze people kind of way. It's
just socializing.
Like socializing and genuinely being curious about other people's lives and what they do and all that stuff.
Yeah, because I've found a lot of photographers, they ask me, they're like, oh, what are your top networking tips? And I'm like, firstly, don't do networking. Like, you can go to a networking event, but like, just go make friends with people. Like, don't.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sell anything, no one wants to be around you. Like, just go out, be a nice person, go and help people.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, it's all, worst case scenario, you have a good time.
Yeah.
It's like
exactly.
Whereas no one has a good time at a networking event trying to be a network person, doing all these like. So someone was telling me about all these mind game tricks they play at networking events. I was like, no one's booking. Yeah, what's it called? NLP, neuro linguistic programming. And it's something we used to do years ago in a particular job we had. And I remember at the time going, this is pointless. It's like, make sure you order the same drink as the other person. Jeez. Make sure you work out where their motivations towards or away from. And I'm like, that's great. And I was like, firstly, you're not smart enough to do that whilst holding a normal conversation. And secondly, no, like people see straight. I have people trying it on me all the time, and I'm just like, really? Oh yeah, I've got no time for it. You can like see them because they're slightly delayed in their speech because they're thinking about what to say next. So they're trying to like process, and then you notice the tone of conversation goes in a particular direction, and everything's phrased in a certain way. And it's like, oh, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're boring.
Yeah.
Like, no. I'm gonna go and talk to this person behind the bar here who's actually interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. Much appreciated.
No worries.
And yeah, hopefully it's helped somebody else as well. So before we go into why it's so difficult, I want to quickly touch on this thing because we started making a video about nude photography and the ethics and all the rest of it, which drummed up a lot of debate within the group, various things and all the rest of it. Now, what I didn't mention is I've shot a lot of nudes in my life. Many nudes, and I don't shoot any nudes whatsoever anymore. And there's a really good reason for that. And there's a few reasons for it. And now, I must say, these reasons are personal to me. And just because they're my reasons and my thoughts, it doesn't mean they're right. It just means they're mine. Mm-hmm. And you can be in the exact same position as me and completely disagree. And that's okay. That's, that's one of the things that I fight for in this world, is that you can be different, think different.
Yeah, I mean,
and I will defend your right to think that way. So I shot loads of nudes when I was younger. friends mostly, parties, debauchery. I had a very, I'm sure, I mean, Rob caught me at the end of this phase of my life. I was quite debaucherous in my youth, I think it's fair to say.
I mean, I'm not going to comment further on that.
I partied hard. It didn't quite go full Pete Doherty, but there was a moment where it could have done. So that was very much my lifestyle back then. And I was young and there were friends and all the rest of it. I don't party anymore. I'm old.
Older, I'd like to point out.
Older.
Considerably younger than I am.
Yeah, I'm older. And I have stepchildren. So these are the rationales. So number one, I don't want my stepkids seeing that I photograph people naked. That's embarrassing for them, I think. I'd imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, it's not quite the same thing, but you, shall we say, there is a current trend at the moment of now former adult movie stars complaining quite loudly on all forms of social media that their children are being bullied at school, etc., because of what their mother used to do for a job.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, that was a life choice.
Yep.
And what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't happen.
No, it shouldn't.
But of course it will.
But because it will, because let's face it, children are cruel.
They're so, honestly, some of the stuff, anyway, yeah, children are cruel. So that's one of the reasons. The second one is, not many people my age who are my friends want to be photographed naked. And what tends to happen is men tend to photograph younger women naked because they're more beautiful. Or younger men naked. I did both, male and female nudes. There was no, I can't think of the word now, it's gone for me. But yeah, I don't want to be that guy in his 40s photographing naked girls. It's not for me. And that's not to say it's not for you. It's not for me though. That's my stance on it. And I think mostly it's I've got kids and a partner, like, you know, and it's not an art form I feel passionate about. I think it's really important. Like when we were all partying and all the rest of it, and we took photos of people doing silly things and, you know, whatever it was, or like girlfriends and all the rest of it, you know, so all tastefully done, but it's different, I think, when you're older.
Yeah, and I mean, your perspective on life sort of changes as you sort of move on. Now, like, for example, if we look around the studio and again, we touched on this in previous episodes, various, shall we say, fine art on the wall of your home.
Yeah.
There's some nudies, though.
Oh, there's nude stuff everywhere. There's rude words all over my studio. There's a brilliant plate in the, I can't even put it on YouTube because it's so rude. Have you seen the plate in the kitchen? Yeah. So I'm not a prude by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't do that sort of thing because of those reasons. Now, you might go, well, I'm like you and I do those things. That is fine. It is not this is the rule. That's just my rationale for not doing it. I could easily, if in a different life or a different viewpoint, think the opposite, which is absolutely fine. That's the joy of life.
And I think it comes down to something you said earlier, that you're no longer passionate about that.
Yeah.
You know, and if you are passionate, I mean, let's face it, human beings, we've been fascinated by nude people since the dawn of time in the earliest cave paintings.
Yeah. If the human body is your thing, and if I was as interested in the human body as I am photographing council estate food, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
But I'm not, so I don't. That's a major reason. And I live a much smaller life nowadays. I don't go to these ridiculous parties. I don't do the things I used to do. I don't go around meeting loads of people. You know, my circle's quite small, I'd say, nowadays. I think, you know, whereas at one point I could probably fit everybody into a large venue, I could probably fit people I talk to nowadays into a car.
Yeah.
And, you know,
and you have a two-seater car.
Yeah, I know. It's me and Teddy. You know, my world's very small nowadays, which I like. I think it better suits me. I think I'm a better person with a smaller world.
Yeah, well, it's less complications, isn't it?
Absolutely. Less complications and less chance for misbehaviour. But that's why I don't shoot nudes anymore. Do you shoot nudes?
Not anymore.
No?
Mainly, I mean, because I genuinely don't have time. B, I've been there, done that. When I had the studio, it kind of made sense because, you know, and again, I had like requests from friends saying like, oh, you know, I've seen your pictures of such and such. I want to do that. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, you know, thank you for coming to me that you trust me and, you know, let's do that. But again, I've done that and I couldn't take it anywhere I haven't already been, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in terms of a technical challenge, there's nothing I would do differently, and so there's nothing more to say. So,
Yeah.
you know, and again, we talk about passion. My passion very much these days is moving pictures.
Yes.
So that's what I've been pursuing hard for the last few years.
Yeah, I think like the most technically perfect nude photo I ever took was of my mate. Does anyone know what the helicopter is? Do you know what doing the helicopter? Yes, he was doing the helicopter at the top of the stairs in a party full of people, and no one could see him doing it. Like, it was a brilliant wide shot, and there's him helicoptering at the top of the stairs. That's probably the pinnacle of my
Yeah,
nude work.
That's a lot to process, right?
Yeah, maybe we won't do a post on. I don't know. Maybe we'll do something with Studio Access about it. I don't know, but there we go. So, yeah. So that was a bit of a tangent there. So, going on from that and how quickly Alexis made it in photography, as you'd heard from the interview, to talk about why it's so hard to do that today. Now, Alexis was lucky that she was very good at filtering out the noise. And she worked out, as she mentioned at the end of it, I know it was a bit crackly in the audio. I tried to paraphrase, you understand, that what matters in photography is not what's online. And this is, I was watching this TV show the other day, and it's a film, so it's fictitious, but it had this lady in it, and she was the face of this right-wing conspiracy media group. And she didn't believe in what she was saying. And it was this interesting bit where, and I know I'm guilty of this, the boss said, just tell them what they want to hear. You know, because that's how media works. People read the media they want to read, and it gives them the answers they want to receive. Not many people listen to media of opposing views because they don't want that. They want to hear what they think. And it becomes these echo chambers. And photography online is that echo chamber. It's just, here's my thought. The fact that people watch reviews of equipment they've already bought.
Yeah, it's, and the same way with opinions and so on. You're not researching anything. You're just looking for validation of the opinion you've already formed.
Yeah. And then this, I want to link back that thing about titles. So whenever I try and put some information out on the internet, which isn't something people are familiar with, I have to go for some ludicrous title. Because the only way to get them to watch it is to do that. And it's cool. It's not clickbait. Clickbait is when you go, here's a video full of naked women playing volleyball, and it's a picture of an old man sat in a toilet. That's clickbait.
Yeah.
It's called a highly clickable title. And it uses a formula. And I know everyone hates this. It works. If you use a negative, you have to have one negative word, you have to have some mystique, and that's it. That's enough to make somebody click on it.
Yeah.
It's insane.
And again, as we've discovered, like your YouTube channel versus Studio Access.
Yes.
Very, very different metrics.
Very different metrics. So on Studio Access, even like, it's not just the title and the thumbnail which matter to get people to watch something which is useful. You then have to package it in a way that keeps them happy by telling them what they already know. So you can't go in there with new information. Yeah, and this is depressing to know. It is depressing, but you know, you have to give them loads of stuff they already know and one tiny bit of new information, which most people get very upset about.
It's like mixing peas in with mashed potatoes for children. That's probably the best way.
Whereas Studio Access is just, here's what it is. You don't have to, you know, and it's annoying. Like, I tried to make YouTube like that originally, and it just tanked. And obviously, there's a cost to running a YouTube channel. It's not free. Especially if you're in a studio, like, and you're not doing other stuff, you have to pay for it. And you've got Rob here, and, you know, he's doing work as well, and that's got to be paid for too.
And I'm not cheap.
No. So it's, the Studio Access literally just is here is what you need to know. I'm not going to try and justify it. It just is. And the people who go on there just want to know what they want to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much a different sort of viewer. So,
yes,
YouTube, as you say, everybody on YouTube is looking for a quick fix. Do this one thing to be a professional in 2025. Mate, I'm clicking that.
Quick or cheap. So I changed my how to light like Platon and why it's important in your style video to look at the results from this $2 modifier.
Yeah.
Like, so depressing, but you know, that is what it is. And people are like, oh, you shouldn't chase the clicks. If I don't get the clicks, I don't get the sponsors. If I don't get the sponsors, I can't afford to make the videos.
Yeah, I say, you know, especially as a family man, you know, time is precious.
Oh yeah, like, so, I'm not with my kids right now.
Yeah, and
Like,
it's and for context, it's Saturday here in the UK.
it's Saturday. It's 11:45, and yeah, it's harder than ever to get into photography because people don't want to hear what they don't know.
That's I think a clear distinction. So people will troll YouTube, and nobody trolling YouTube is serious about becoming a professional photographer. That's just my opinion. It's
Yeah.
is most professional photographers that I speak to, yourself and a couple of others, don't even go on YouTube. They don't go on
yes.
YouTube for information about photography.
So I go on YouTube, and the things I like to watch, I watch Peter McKinnon's videos because I think they're bloody brilliant. I've never known anybody to make a video so engaging about nothing. Like it's such a skill. Love those. Love an old school Casey Neistat vlog, as you well know.
Yes.
Love a bit of Van Neistat. Don't agree with his politics, but I do like his videos, and I do like hearing his politics because he's very educated, and hearing someone with a different viewpoint who is very good at putting it across is very good, I believe. So I love a bit of Van Neistat. And then I watch a lot of how to replace things on my MX5 because that's what we're doing later.
Exactly. There's a whole bunch of resources on YouTube, which are great.
Perfect. I watched Thomas Heaton as well. The landscape photographer. Yeah. I am fascinated. I would love to be able to use his format of videos for what I do. But I just don't know whether it's going to translate. I'm going to try one. I'm going to try and make a Thomas Heaton style video because I do like them. I love the story, the narrative and everything else. But I don't know if I've got the ability to make a video that good whilst taking a photograph.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. Takes the photograph and gets all these brilliant camera angles and shots. Anyway, a big fan of Thomas Heaton videos. Try and get him on the podcast, actually. I don't know. If anyone knows him, do send me an email. I'd like to reach out to him. I don't know how to do that. I'm sure someone can work that out, can't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be able to get hold of him. Let's see if we can get him on. Maybe we'll drive over to him.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I love his work. I love the way he puts his videos together. But yeah, what do you watch on YouTube?
Aside from like cat videos, you mean?
Oh yeah, obviously.
Yeah. I tend to sort of have two things. Either most of what I watch is cooking shows and stuff. Things about food. Because I'm obviously I enjoy cooking. I'm quite competent in the kitchen, and that's for looking for ideas and stuff. Always love dash cam compilations. They're always brilliant.
I can't watch those. They get my heart rate up too much. I get a bit irate.
Well, you got to know your enemy. And as you know, I do have in fact, it's my Action 5. It spends 90% of its life as a dash cam.
Yeah. Did you know? Sorry, this is a tangent here. Of all the dash cams online, there's only 2 different dash cams.
I mean,
in terms of sensor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
And neither of them can read a car registration plate from 10 meters.
Yeah, bit of a problem.
Because someone crashed near me recently and they're like, can I get the dash cam footage? I was like, yeah. Couldn't read number plates. It was just like, it was useless.
Yeah.
There's all of them, whether you spend £20 or 200, it's the same sensor and a plastic lens in front of it.
Yeah.
And they're just different packaging and software.
Whereas actually, the one I'm using makes a lot of sense.
Yes, that does make a lot of sense.
I mean, what is it you said? It's the most overspec dash cam we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Especially as it lives its life in an aluminium small rig cage.
Yeah. I mean, that survived the crash.
Yeah. If nothing else, that's I hate to use the term crash cam, but that's what Hollywood use stuff like that for.
But yeah, I think it's so. I mean, the other problem on YouTube is there's loads of misinformation, and I'm guilty of this as well. There's a video I did recently where I was shooting and talking at the same time, and I said broad light when I meant narrow light. And I didn't realize that until someone in the comments went, "Don't you mean this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do. That's exactly what I meant."
Cheers for pointing that out.
It's quite hard to shoot and talk.
I mean, it's not something I've ever really tried doing. I mean, as you know, you drag me kicking and screaming in front of a camera.
Yeah,
it's literally what happens. I'm usually my safe space is behind one.
Yeah,
definitely, not here in front of one. And that's just this works because I'll just bounce off you.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just two mates having a chat, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Whereas if I was to do what you do, I have to sit down there and present to a camera. It's awkward.
Well, I can only do the talking to camera bits if no one else is in the studio. I can't do it if anyone else is here. It's too embarrassing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we've had to do some stuff for studio access.
Weirdly, that feels different, though.
Well, but usually because there's a third party here as
Yeah,
well
there's
as
other people.
it's not just
Yeah,
yourself and myself. There's normally someone here, like we had JC last weekend
yeah,
and so on. So there's kind of oh, it almost feels like a live shoot
yes,
kind of
that's
vibe.
true.
At
Yeah,
least that particular one.
but yeah. It's difficult to find any information that's good. And the other thing is the weighting on the importance of the information. Like, I mean, whenever we do one-to-ones or that sort of thing with people, I spend most of the time trying to uneducate what they think is education, because what they're talking about all this stuff, and it's like, I'm like, mate, that's completely useless information. I'm like, it's correct, but it's no use to you.
Yeah.
And trying to get them to understand. I mean, that's why Alexis was successful so quick, because she just went, oh, cool, that's what's important. Let's do that. And now there she is with an agent shooting worldwide campaigns.
Yeah, kudos to her.
Yeah, absolutely. And then before anyone says anything like, oh, she must have had a really rich parents, like, no, did it all herself. No financial aid, no help, no nothing.
Yeah, and it's oh god, well, I'm going to calm this down a bit here, but just because somebody is young, successful, and so on, doesn't necessarily mean that they were given a leg up by somebody else.
Exactly.
Sometimes people just put the work in.
And she's definitely one of those. She did no help from parents or anyone like that. She just did it herself.
And again, just some people are just good.
Yeah.
It's like there's certain things that people they just get and they're immediately good at.
Yeah.
Like myself and guitars, for example, was not that.
No.
It was the complete opposite of that.
Yeah.
And then you kind of realise that, and that hang on, this is not going to be for me because I'm not particularly good at this. Other people, like virtuosos in a year.
I know. Our middle kid taught himself sort of like grade 5, grade 6 level piano in 2 weeks, having never played an instrument.
Yeah.
I was like, you git.
I know, it's just it's sickening, honestly, people that are that good. But again, you just have to accept that some people are just better at stuff like that. And
yeah, everyone's got the strengths.
And obviously, they found their niche and their direction, and again, extremely passionate about it.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up, isn't it? Really.
Indeed. So
yeah, on a positive.
Yeah, always end on a positive note. So so it's goodbye from me.
See you later.